Billionaire is shocked to see his frail mother leaning on a homeless teen. What the teen says breaks him. He thought he'd left the ugliness of his past behind the whispers about his family's money, the quiet stories of who paid the real price. But on a cold night outside his luxury hotel, he sees something that freezes his blood. His frail mother, leaning on a homeless black teenager, clinging to him as if she's known him her whole life. In one trembling sentence, the teen shatters everything the billionaire believes about his success, his family, and himself. What could a homeless boy say that brings a powerful man to his knees? Elliot Ward was the kind of man people read about but never met. His name sat on the side of skyscrapers, hospitals, and sleek tech campuses. He moved through the world in tinted cars and private elevators, insulated by wealth so vast it almost felt unreal. To his followers online, he was the friendly billionaire who donated to charities, spoke about equality on big stages, and posted polished photos with captions about opportunity and hard work. But beneath the glowing headlines, there were stories he never asked about. His family's money came from old deals, old land, old power. There were rumors of neighborhoods pushed out, workers underpaid, and communities, mostly black and brown, left. With the scraps, while the Ward fortune grew, Elliot told himself that was the past. He was different. He funded scholarships, sponsored panels, hired diversity consultants. On this particular night, he was stepping out of a black car in front of his newest luxury hotel, preoccupied with numbers, investors, and his next big announcement. The staff straightened as he arrived, the golden lights of the entrance reflecting off polished marble. It was just another evening in a life that seemed perfectly controlled. Yet, only a few feet away from those bright doors, on the cold sidewalk that framed his empire, something waited that no press release could spin, no donation could erase. In a single moment, the comfortable distance between his world and the people his fortune had overlooked was about to collapse right at his mother's feet. Elliot stepped from the car into the glow of the hotel lights, already reaching for his phone, when a small knot of movement at the edge of the driveway caught his eye. At first, it registered as the usual someone the security team would quietly move along before guests complained. But then he saw a familiar curve of silver hair, a thin hand clutching at a young arm, and his chest tightened. His mother was outside, not in her suite, not in the private lounge he'd designed for her comfort, but on the cold sidewalk, leaning heavily on a black teenage boy in a torn hoodie. His backpack slumped at his feet like it was all he owned. In an instant, the machine around Elliot reacted. A security guard changed direction, his expression hardening the moment he took in the boy's dark skin and ragged clothes. Another guard lifted a hand toward his radio, already preparing the story. Wealthy, fragile white woman, threatened by a homeless black kid outside a five-star hotel. No one said it aloud, but Elliot could feel it in the air. The automatic villain in the scene had already been chosen. Guests slowed, watching from behind glass doors. A woman clutched her purse tighter. Someone raised a phone, framing the boy and the old woman as if they were a spectacle, instead of two human beings holding each other up. As Elliot hurried forward, he finally saw the boy clearly. The rawness of cold had settled into the teenager's lips. His fingers reddened and cracked. His sneakers were splitting at the seams, the kind of shoes no one bought new. Yet his posture toward Elliot's mother was careful, almost protective. She clung to his arm with a trust that made no sense, her frail body angled toward him as if he were the only stable thing in her world. The first guard reached them, stepping between the boy and the entrance, his body language sharp with practiced suspicion. He gestured sharply at the teen, the same gesture he had repeated 100 times to other black and brown kids outside rich buildings. The same unspoken order: move, disappear, you don't belong here. The teenager's shoulders tightened. It was the reaction of someone who knew exactly how nights like this could end on the ground, in cuffs or worse. Memories flashed behind his eyes, being pushed away from warm storefronts, questioned for sitting too long on a bench, told again and again that his presence was a problem. He had been here before, in 100 different doorways. Only this time, an old white woman was clinging to him, refusing to let go. Elliot's mother's fingers dug into the boy's sleeve as the guard tried to separate them. Her breathing was shallow, but there was a fierce insistence in the way she held on, a refusal that startled even Elliot. The boy murmured something to her, a few low words that made her eyes fill with a sudden painful recognition. Elliot stepped in, signaling for the guards to back off. They hesitated, torn between protocol and the sight of their billionaire employer, staring at them with a confusion that bordered on anger. The teen finally looked up at Elliot, and their eyes locked. In that gaze, there was no deference, no awe at the man whose name glowed above the doors. There was exhaustion, hurt, and a quiet accusation Elliot couldn't yet name. The teenager spoke softly, just enough for Elliot's mother to hear, adding a single detail: an old neighborhood name, a demolished street, a family story buried under Elliot's success. The sound of it made his mother flinch as if struck. In that moment, standing between the marble entrance and the cracked sidewalk, Elliot sensed that this boy was not a stranger to his family's story at all, and whatever connected them was not going to make him look like the hero he liked to believe he was. Inside the glass doors, the air felt too warm, too bright. Elliot's mother sank into a lobby chair, still gripping the teenager's sleeve, as if letting go would erase him. Staff hovered at a careful distance, whispering into earpieces. Outside, the wail of approaching sirens cut through the hum of valet traffic. Someone had called the police. The boy stood awkwardly under the chandelier's glow, his worn clothes and tired eyes thrown into brutal contrast against marble and gold. When Elliot quietly asked who he was and what he had said to his mother, the answer came in pieces, stripped of drama, heavy with fact. The teen told him he was from a neighborhood that no longer existed on any map flattened to make way for one of the Ward family's earliest luxury developments. He described cramped brick houses filled with generations of black families, the corner store where everyone knew his name, the church that doubled as a shelter when the city ignored them. Then he spoke of the letters, the notices, the men in suits explaining that progress needed space, that their homes were in the way. He explained how his father had tried to fight, attending meetings where decisions were already made, learning too late that the developers and city officials all shook hands behind closed doors. The boy recounted how protests were met with police lines, how his father was painted as aggressive, unreasonable, dangerous, another black man causing trouble in front of cameras controlled by people who looked like Elliot. He spoke of an arrest that followed a peaceful demonstration of charges that did not match the facts of a father who never came home from county lockup. He described a mother who unraveled under the weight of grief and bills, of an eviction notice taped to their door bearing the name of the Ward company at the bottom. He told Elliot that every night on the streets he had slept under buildings financed by the same family that had taken his home. As the sirens grew louder, the boy quietly revealed that he had recognized Elliot's last name the moment he saw it glowing above the hotel doors. He admitted that, to him, that name meant not opportunity, but loss, a symbol of a world where his black family's life could be erased and repackaged as development. Elliot watched his mother begin to shake, tears spilling as she confirmed pieces of the storyboard meetings she had attended. Late-night arguments with her husband, the moment she had signed papers knowing exactly which neighborhood would suffer. She had seen the boy once before, clinging to his father's leg during a tense meeting at City Hall. She had said nothing then. Now, listening to the teenager calmly connect his homelessness to the Ward fortune, Elliot felt something inside him crack. For the first time, he saw his empire through the eyes of someone crushed beneath it. Outside, police lights flashed against the glass, washing everything in red and blue. And standing there with his mother, broken beside a homeless black teen, Elliot realized the next choice he made would define far more than his public image. The officer stepped into the lobby with hands already drifting toward their belts, eyes locking first on the black teenager, then on the fragile white woman at his side. Before a single assumption could harden into action, Elliot moved between them. For the first time that night, he used the full weight of his status, not as a shield for himself, but as a barrier for the boy. The officer's posture changed instantly. The same uniform that had once treated the teen's father as a threat now softened in the presence of money and power. They left without an arrest. No one was shoved to the ground. No mugshot was taken. The homeless boy walked out of that lobby alive, but not untouched. He carried the memory of how quickly things could have gone another way, if a billionaire had not decided just this once to stand in front of him instead of over him. In the weeks that followed, Elliot did what his family had always avoided. He went back. He stood on the polished concrete where the boys' neighborhood once stood, now dressed as boutiques and rooftop lounges. He met former residents in cramped apartments and distant bus stops, listening as they recounted how revitalization had ripped the center out of their lives. He read reports, court records, eviction notices bearing his family's name. With every file, denial became impossible. He paid for lawyers to investigate the teen's father's case. He funded housing, education, and community centers not as charity, but as restitution directed by the very people his fortune had displaced. He released statements that did not spin or sanitize, admitting publicly that his wealth was tied to racial injustice. But even then, he knew money could not rebuild every demolished home or resurrect every stolen future. One act of conscience did not balance generations of harm. That night in the lobby was not just a personal awakening, it was a mirror held up to a system where black communities are erased in the name of progress, and where protection arrives quickly for some and, too late, or not at all, for others. The real question is not whether one billionaire changed, it is this: when we finally see who has paid the price for our comfort, what will we do with that truth?